I am special, but so is everyone, right? Everyone is equally as special as I am, and we all have the same capacity to change anything that we want to about ourselves that we can also control.
I'm immediately intrigued at your concept of being an everything coach. So I think the initial response would be like, it's nearly impossible for someone to coach me in everything.
Yeah.
So such a wide variety of topics. But what is it? What does it mean for you to be an everything coach?
So for me, it just means that I focus like if you want to break it down a little bit more, it's like a habit and accountability coach, but you apply habits across all different areas of life, right? So, um, and you need accountability in all different areas of life too. So I just kind of simplified it and said everything coach.
Which makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
really like providing someone basically a firm foundation to build off of for everything else.
Hmm. Yeah.
I like that part. Is so do you think the habits are really like the biggest stumbling point for people when they're first starting out, is really looking at the habits that they have and
Mm.
how that creates the outward appearance of their life? Or like what is your typical starting point when meeting somebody new?
It's a good question. I think your mindset and your habits um, are interconnected to such a degree that you can't really focus on one without also focusing on the other. So having in your it's what's the nice is that your actions influence your mindset, and your mindset influences your actions, right? So they have that kind of built in already. So if you, um, for me, habits are a way that you can prime your mindset to change in a specific way, kind of like reverse engineering it. Um, so if you want to say like you want to, um, I'm trying to think of an example, just like become a better reader or something, uh, you can, or maybe you want to have the mindset that you are a learner, right? And you're not currently in that state, then you can implement a habit of reading 30 pages a day or something that, when done consistently over time, will create that mindset. Like you go from being someone who wants to learn things to it's like, oh, I actually am learning things because I'm reading 30 minutes a day from these different books, right?
Right.
And so you can reverse engineer it in that regard. Um, but it can also go the other way just based off of different life experiences that you have. Like your mindset is constantly updating and constantly shifting already, anyways. Um, but you can increase um, like the potential that your mindset has to go a certain way that you wanted to by setting and achieving specific habits on a daily basis.
Which makes sense. I think the hardest part I would assume there is trying to figure out what habit to set. Because I think most
Hmm.
people try and jump right from 0 to 100 miles an hour and try and just
Yep.
build the habit of
Yep.
the thing that they want rather than building it slowly. Do you see it the same way?
Oh yeah, 100%. I actually, it's funny that you mentioned that. So I developed a 10-step system that allows people to change whatever they want to about themselves that they have control over. It's called the Life Optimization Loop. I actually gave a TED talk on it a couple weeks ago. And so is that loop is built around that premise of like how you can create transformation in your life in a sustainable way, and allow it to compound over time, right? So, in kind of to simplify the loop itself down, is like you figure out who you are and who you want to become, and then you focus on drawing a connecting line in between those two things. And then that connecting line is made up of a one broad vision and then multiple habits that you stack incrementally over time in order to create compound change to achieve that final end. Um, but I know I'm totally guilty of this. It's just like you get so excited about some idea and you're like, oh, I got this. This is going to be so great. And then you stack like five different habits all at once. And then, oh, you can do it for a week and then life happens, right? And so the key is that you start with one habit at a time, make it so small and so simple and so stupid easy that you can't not do it, and then cement that, and then tack another one on. Cement that, then tack another one on. And over time, you create compound change in a sustainable way. That's kind of the basis of the life optimization loop, if that makes sense.
It does, and I think it's a really sustainable and smart way to do it. Looking back at even myself, the progress that I've made in certain areas, I think, can be attributed to a very slow growth over a very extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been very guilty of making attempts to do radical change, right? Because I think
Yep.
we
Yep.
all hear big goals require big action,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some truth to that. But I think we
Mm-hmm.
also set ourselves up to this expectation of you can radically shift everything in your life overnight, and it's going
Mm-hmm.
to look different tomorrow. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's the key difference there is it has to be an understanding of, yes, you can make one decision today that can radically impact your life, but that decision has to be small and sustainable rather than this grandiose thing that is going to set you up for failure and put you in this negative cycle over and over again.
Yeah. No, that's 100% true. Um, oh, I had something. There's no, I lost it. Oh well. So what would you say then is like the biggest challenge that you're facing in change right now?
I think the biggest challenge is really trying to understand, like, how do you take a big idea and break it down into that stupid easy habit that you can't
Mm,
fail, right? Because
yeah.
there's so many things. I think that gets to be a sticking point too. Is like, if you look around your life and there's 15 things you want to change, you want to have better relationships, you want to have better health, you want to have better finances, whatever it is.
Hmm.
I think the inclination is you want to make some level of massive change and massive progress on each of those things individually, where it's like, all right, cool, now I need to take massive action in 5 different directions at the same time. Right? It's like trying
Yeah.
to drive your car in 2 directions at the same time. You can't do it. And
Yeah.
it sets us up for failure. So I guess the biggest thing that I would think would be trying to find what is the common theme among those that I can start making a positive directional change in, where, hey, if I do this one thing, it's going to have some level of firm foundation for all of those things to be built off of. And then you
Mm-hmm.
can stack up from there.
Yeah. So like the tide rises, all ships in the harbor type of
Yes.
situation. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I remembered my thought from earlier and it ties into this perfectly, so that's good. Um, so in the life optimization loop, like when you're starting, you view and this is how I do it too, is like I'll separate life into five different areas or categories or whatever, right? So you've got physical, social, intellectual, spiritual, and financial. And then when you're starting out, most of us, right, we're not like David Goggins level of self-discipline, right? We just don't have that because we haven't trained for years and years, decades even, to the intensity that someone like he has. And so when that happens, like we need to start by focusing in one area and focusing on maybe not necessarily what we need, but what we want, right? Because the goal and the way that change is going to happen the best is if you remove as much friction as possible in between you and your desired outcome, right? And so it's really hard for me to get you to do something that you need to do, but it's a lot easier to get you to do something that you already want to do anyways, right? Or at least you have more of an inclination to do than the stuff that you need to do. Like we all need to do our taxes, right? But how many of us put that off until the last minute and we go do all the other stuff we want to do, like go to the gym or go eat dinner or whatever instead, right? And so what we've done over time, and I say we as like general humanity, most of us at this point, we've consistently shot ourselves in the foot so many times by saying that we're going to do something and then not doing it, right? Saying that we're going to do something and then not doing it, right? We're filled with holes and we're drowning. We have no character of integrity left because we've shot ourselves too many times. We can't trust ourselves, right? And so when we have everyone has to start somewhere, right? And so you start by picking the area that you want to change the most in, so it's going to be the easiest thing for you to, like, the most motivated place that you're going to be in to change, and then you implement the smallest, simplest habit that you can that's going to push you towards that vision that you have in that area, and then you just focus on building momentum and you just focus on filling those holes in your character of integrity and saying, hey, like, I did actually do what I said I was going to do in this case.
Right.
And that makes you feel good, right? And then you do that again. And then you do that again. And you do it again. And over time, you stack those wins until eventually you're like, oh, shoot, I am someone who has integrity now. And I do what I say I'm going to do. And then when you kind of somewhere along that road, it's different for everyone, but you can start tackling the things that you actually need to get done as well, right? And obviously, to a certain extent, you have to tackle those along the way just because life happens and exists and is what it is, and that's fine. But when you reforge that character of integrity and you fill those holes that you've shot in yourself, um, you become whole again, right? And you're able to approach and new challenges, new things that need to get done with that mindset of like, okay, here's this big thing. I'm going to break it down. And just because I say that I can do it means that I can. Because look at this litmus test that I've got of all these other times that I've said I was going to do something and I did, right? So it just builds up that trust within yourself that you're going to be able to do it some way, somehow, because you can, because you have. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think, that's really where your self-confidence comes from, is keeping the promises that you made to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a bigger part too. There is the decision that you make of whether or not you're going to be able to do something will often determine the outcome, right? So if you say, I'm never going to be
Mm-hmm.
able to get this job, you're going to approach that with a failure's mindset and say, hey,
Yep.
it's not going to work out, and you're going to find ways to fail. But if you
Mm-hmm.
come at it with this positive mindset of this is going to work out, you're going to find a way to make it work. And I think
Yeah.
when you start building that self-confidence first and you understand, hey, I am the type of person who does this and I find a way to make it work, you're sort of creatively programming reality in a way that's going to create the reality you want,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's really building out this self-confidence first by keeping the promises you make to yourself, and then having this little momentum kick in day after day after day, what I'm really hearing you say there is it's almost this hurried patience of you are really rapidly trying to do the thing that you said you were going to do today, but
Hmm.
being patient, realizing that it's going to take years worth of single days to build up to get to that eventual thing. But you're
Hmm.
not focused on years, you're focused on how do I execute perfectly today, knowing that if
Exactly.
you continue to win the day, you'll win the month, the year, the decade, and so on.
Hmm. Yeah, it's the Navy SEALs have a saying, I'm not sure if you've heard or not, but just that slow is smooth and smooth is fast,
Yeah.
right? It's that exact same principle. Um, because when you're doing things smoothly, that's when the compound effect kicks in.
Right.
And it's the eighth wonder of the world. Like the way to win at anything is to win at compounding that thing. And so being able to stack consistent efforts over time is how your efforts are going to compound. And that's just how you win. That's the formula.
Yeah. So how do you combat the person who consumes social media on the regular, who sees the quote unquote overnight success story and believes that there are these magical people that exist that just out of nowhere everything clicks, right?
um, I honestly I haven't. You know what's actually really funny? I think the person who most uh feels like that I've dealt with is myself.
How so?
Um, I think that all the time. And I've like in my interactions with other people, like most people are pretty cognizant of the fact that it takes time and like I am too, but it's one thing to sit there and say that it takes time, and it's another to believe that it is good, like to internalize the reality of that in yourself, right?
So are you
Uh,
saying maybe it's almost like it's easier to see it and say it in other people, but when
mhm.
it's yourself, you're a little bit less tolerant?
Yep, 100%, 100%.
Hmm. Which makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, I think that's probably how most people are on an individual level. But maybe not. I just know, like I hold myself to a really high standard, and I push and I push and I push, and I'm like, and I from observation standpoint, um, I see that there's a lot of things that I'm doing that most people aren't. And so I expect like, oh, since I'm doing these things that most people aren't, like, why am I not there already yet? Right? When in reality, it's like you look at anyone who's done anything great, they've done it for years and years and years, right? I don't know, one of my favorite podcasters, David Senra, he does the Founders podcast, absolutely phenomenal podcast. Um, it's finally starting to like take off and kind of blow up for him. It's been 7 years. Like that's no short time. That's 7 years.
Yeah.
Like it's wild. And you think about if you look through and study histories like successful entrepreneurs, successful leaders, like anyone who's done something great that has a book written about them has been doing that great thing in a great way for a long, long time before they ever even got recognized
Yeah.
really for it at all. But it's again, it's one thing for me to sit here and recite history to you or to myself, and another for me to have that internalized and be like, that is the expectation that I should have for myself as well. And obviously, it's the expectation that I should have for myself, but I haven't quite gotten to the point yet where it's like, all right, I locked that down, and that's just where my mindset is overall. It's getting there. It's getting there,
Yeah.
but it's a process.
Well, I think it really highlights a great point in that you and I are both humans. And like I think
Don't
we
I hate it?
we fail to remember that sometimes.
Yep.
But like the goal for us should just be to shorten that feedback loop between us going out there wanting a thing and failing at it, figuring out what didn't work, and then continuing to like refine the process. But
Yeah.
it's really important for us to realize again, we are human. We're going to go through this entire human experience and have to fail our way forward. And the fringe cases of like the one dude you hear who becomes an overnight
Yeah.
millionaire on whatever,
Yeah,
like
that
is not
freaking
the norm
Dogecoin guy.
for sure. And for us to continue to change our approach because we saw one person do it, so hey, we think like, well, if he could do it, so can I. And yeah,
Yeah.
there's a factor of luck to that. Sure, if he could do it, sure, maybe you could too. But
Hmm.
what you wind up doing, I think I see a lot of times, like you wind up chasing that other thing, and you get distracted from just winning the day. And
Hmm.
because you get distracted from winning the day, now you've lost any positive momentum you had, and now
Yep.
you're starting back over from zero. And I
Dude,
think most
100%.
people forget that if they just stick with the boring stuff, right, it might not be as exciting, it might not be as glorified on social media, but if you just
Hmm.
continue to put in the work day after day after day, that stuff builds up. And that's how you wind up being here, having these conversations and doing the things that most people are like, man, wouldn't that be cool if?
I'm looking for a quote. Sorry.
Yeah,
You
no, you're good.
reminded me of a really good quote that I wanted to bring up.
It's something that I'm actually working right now with my kids on. We started this little young entrepreneur's journey. My
Hmm.
daughter wants to write a book, and my son wants to build a game, like a mobile app.
That's way cool. How
And
old are your kids?
my daughter is 8, and my son is 11.
Dude, that's awesome. Go
Yeah,
them.
it's a lot of fun. We're in like
Go
week
them.
3 of it, and the thing that I enjoy the most is showing them that like time is going to pass. So long as you make a little bit of progress on it every day or every couple days, and just like keep a little bit of tension on it,
Hmm.
what's going to happen is, and I can't wait for this part, in a year from now, one of their friends is going to be like, man, that's so cool. You've got your own game or you've got your own book. I wish I could do that. And it's like, you could. Like,
Yeah.
we're not doing anything really special other than making a little bit of progress every single day for the course of a year. And
Hmm.
then in a year, you're going to take kid A, who made some level of really slow, steady progress, and kid B, who spent that time doing something else, which, again, not to diminish whatever they're focused on. But I think we
Hmm.
forget that that time is going to pass. And it's like, man, I wish I could have done that. You could have. It's just the choices that we make on what you focus on. Are you focused on investing time into scrolling TikTok and just escaping from reality? Or are you
Yep.
using those, precious minutes to better yourself a little bit toward a goal? I think we
Yeah.
forget how much that time stacks up.
Yeah. You can distract yourself to death.
Yeah,
That's for
literally.
sure. I found the quote, and actually it goes in perfectly. So you know Edwin Land?
No.
Okay, so he's the founder of Polaroid. He's one of Steve Jobs' idols. He's got like the third most patents of any person in US history. Really fascinating individual. Um, in his biography, he has this quote. He just says, "My whole life has been spent trying to teach people that intense concentration for hour after hour can bring out in people resources they didn't know they had." And so it goes back to that idea of focus, right? Is that we have a really hard time focusing, especially in today's day and age, with all the social media, the internet, the online, like everything about the world that we live in developed countries is focused on taking our time away from us and giving our time to these other companies who make money from capturing it, right? And so being able to, like, honestly, in today's day and age, if you can focus, you have a superpower. You're superhuman. And you will be able to beat 99% of the competition because no one else can. Well, that's not true. Everyone can focus, but most people just choose not to.
Yeah. I think it
Um,
goes back pretty well with what you talked about before about the have to do's versus the want to do's. Like when I
Yeah.
was growing up, my father always told me you have to do your have to do's first, then you can do your want to do's.
Hmm.
Right? And I hated it as a kid because like, well,
It's a
I
good
don't want,
dad.
I don't, yes, I don't want to do the have to do's. I want to do the want to do's. That's why they're want to do's. They're fun. I want to
Yep.
do these things first. And I think what you talked about before about really hacking the system or whatever you want to call it to make your have to do's feel like a want to do,
Hmm.
then right, time doesn't exist. When you're doing something you want
Yep.
to do, you could focus on that thing for a long time because you're having fun, you're enjoying it, and it doesn't feel forced.
Hmm.
Right. So I think, what you said before about trying to figure out a way to make your have to do feel like a want to do is a really
Hmm.
good little approach to, hacking that focus.
Yeah. Yeah, it's worked super well for me, and for a bunch of my friends that I've taught this to. Um, there's a there's a quote by Naval Ravikant. He says, just like find work that feels like play, right?
Yeah.
And it's for me that hits so hard because like we spend, what's the percentage? Like maybe 80% of our waking hours working in life. And it's like, I'm sorry, but it just doesn't make sense at all for me to spend 80% of the hours that I'm awake working a job that I don't like, working at something that I'm not obsessed with, working at something that I don't love. Like the equation there just doesn't make sense. It
Right.
just doesn't. The math's not there for me. And so I've spent the last almost probably about 2 years now, um, just running experiments, running tests, trying different businesses, trying to figure out like what I want, why I am the way that I am, what makes me tick, what I'm obsessed with. And ultimately, like, this is what I've come to is like, I'm just obsessed with change. Um, and being able to master myself in such a way that I can use just the life that I'm living in trying to change things as my product in and of itself, right? I am my own product. And so it's been really cool to just run these experiments and run these um, they're just experiments,
Yeah.
but with myself and to an extent with other people, just to like learn how change works, and but specifically like how change works within myself, right? Because I know that I am special, but so is everyone, right? Everyone is equally as special as I am, and we all have the same capacity to change anything that we want to about ourselves that we can also control. Um, and so my goal is essentially just to discover what those like what makes me change and what those inner workings are, and then share those insights with other people, and do so in a way that helps to like that both parties are kept accountable and held
Right.
accountable to continually changing. And it's we'll see. I haven't quite made it to the point where it's something that I can do like as a career. But that's the goal. That's what we're gonna push for.
Yeah. Which I think is a really good goal to have, and especially when you start looking at what is your purpose in life, which obviously is like a
Hmm.
really big question, but I think most people don't necessarily pursue that so much as like just, hey, we're gonna make a living and you need to save up X amount of dollars by the time you're
Yeah, screw
65.
that, dude. Life's
And
too short.
it is. Is there a part of you that really focuses on today as opposed to tomorrow? Like in terms of,
Mm,
is tomorrow guaranteed? No. Is the rest of today guaranteed? No. So is there a part of that that's really like, let's just go all out and see what I can do in this given moment that I have right now, and not necessarily worry about what if in 25, 35, 40 years from now?
hmm. Yeah, So I have two answers for that. On a like in a short answer, yes. When I am actively taking action to go out and run a change experiment. So like if I am setting a new habit and I'm like going out and pursuing the cementation of that habit in myself, like that is a very in the moment, a very present inducing activity, right? Because you're like, you're there, you're changing, you're trying new things, you're trying to figure it out. Like your brain's working. You're like, is this working? Is this not working? Why is this working? If it is, why is it not working if it's not? And like you're constantly running these mental calculations and building these models out in your head. Um, and so like when you are in the moment of change, I think you are able to be in the present. And I know like I've experienced that is like when I'm out actively making an effort to change something about myself and to become better, I'm like, I'm there, right? I've arrived. I am in that moment. Um, and it's, but when it's like, when I have off time from that or downtime or something, like my mind is way in the future. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, this will be super cool. Like 5 years down the road, if slash when I can do this consistently enough and I'm making a bunch of money from it, and then I just get to like go and run experiments with my life and get paid to do it. Like that'll be really cool. But right now it's like still kind of sucks, but it doesn't at the same time. And it's like you get caught up in the future far too often, I think. And so I've actually realized that just these last couple of days as I've been running experiments and I've kind of changed my format and my model a little bit to make up for that. And so what I'm actually doing now is I'm reading a new self-improvement book each week. And self-improvement for me is a pretty broad statement. It could be like a biography, it could be an autobiography, it could be like a self-help book. Like there's so many lessons to learn from reading, and like you improve just by reading itself. Like improvement comes as a result of you reading, just period, right? Um, and so I'm going through one book a week right now, and then I'm taking like, okay, what's Max's key takeaway here? And then what's Max's habit that he's going to implement this week in order to improve in this area that he finds himself currently lacking in, right? And so for me now, each week, I'm running those experiments and running a new experiment and a new habit on a daily level. So I'm incorporating that um, that moment of presentness on a daily basis, um, which I think for me is going to help me to be a lot more grounded in the moment, right? And grounded, excuse me, in the present rather than constantly worrying about the future, because it's like I'm running this experiment right now. This is just what I have to focus on. I just am not giving myself time to go and worry about all of this future stuff anymore. That's kind of what I'm trying to create and trying to shape within my own life right now. So I guess you could maybe call it a meta experiment because it's running an experiment about running experiments. Um, but that's the thought that'll help me to just kind of focus more on just living life in the present rather than worrying so much about the future and on. Does that answer your question? It was a little convoluted, I know, but
It does. And I think, I don't know if you're familiar with Doctor Strange,
yeah,
the cartoon, right?
vaguely.
So, yeah. The thing that I like about that, and I often talk about visiting the future, is the idea of like sitting there quietly visualizing, if
Hmm.
I do this, what are their potential outcomes? And looking at what my future will look like based on the decision in front of me right now. And
Hmm.
I think it's a really healthy thing to visit the future to see, like, if I continue down this path, what will my future look like?
Hmm.
But, and a really important but here, is enjoying the present. Because I
Mm-hmm.
think what a lot of people do is they look at the future and think that they will enjoy the future, so they're willing to suffer in the present. And what winds
Mm-hmm.
up happening is they just build up this pattern of continuing to suffer every freaking day and never getting to the part where they enjoy it. So I think it's
Yeah.
really important to like look at the future repercussions of my current day decisions and what habits I'm playing out in real time, how those are going to affect my future, and
Mm-hmm.
continually visit and say like, all right, cool. In 5 years from now, if I continue doing this one little thing, what's it going to look like? Is it going to be good or bad? Do I want to change it? Like I have the power to create that story right now based on the decisions I
Yep.
make today,
Mm-hmm.
but still operating in a way where you can really enjoy today for everything it's worth. Because if you never get to 5 years, obviously, God willing, we all do, but like not a
Yep.
guarantee. If you
Right.
never make it there, you don't want to say, "Oh, I put off my appreciation for life to a spot that I never got to get
Mm-hmm.
to."
Yep. Yep. No, I resonate with that. Um, it's like I said before, like life's too short. There's like you've got no time to waste, and like there's a lot of self-improvement people out there um who will tell you, "Oh, like you're young, you've got all the time in the world, XYZ," right? Um and there's a few, I know Alex Hormozy, who's like, "Dude, you don't have time. Go like get to work. Let's move," right? Um and I think you need to find that in between for you, right? And it's like you hear the word balance thrown around all the time. Balance doesn't really exist. Like true balance, you're never going to actually have it to any type of consistent degree. Um, like balance is just a constant teeter totter, right? Like you're constant, or a seesaw or whatever they're called. Like you're always on those, like trying to get to that equilibrium, and then but you're never really there. Like sometimes you're like right around, but then oh something happens, right? Um, and so it's just like kind of accepting that that is the reality of life, and just choosing to maximize the time or optimize the time that you have. Um, and it's very easy to say and very hard to do, which is why most people just don't even try, right?
Yeah,
They not only do they look at the future and like kind of go through the future like you were saying, but they just live in the future altogether. Like they just live there. And then they are, since they're living there, like that's kind of where they think they are. Um, and so it's just puts all of these distractions. Um, wait, what am I trying to say? Like it's again like they just distract themselves to death by living in the future, and so they take no action to actually create a future that they want,
right,
because the goodness that they think their future self will have uh isn't, it's just not real. It's a facade, right? Because but and they can't like pull themselves out of that numbness enough to take the brutally difficult action they need to in order to actually create the future that they want.
right.
And I'm so guilty of that, um, all the time, which is part of the reason why I've switched my format and I'm trying to do things the way that I am. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be very interesting next couple months for me to try to like just run those experiments and just see what happens, and see how I feel differently as a result of trying to live more in the moment,
Cool.
by
Is that something that
changing.
you are documenting through like your socials or anything?
Yeah. So every day at 6 p.m. Pacific time, I'm going live on like all the different platforms basically, and just like each week I'm saying, hey, here's the key concept that I took away from this book that I feel like I need to improve on. Here's the habit that I built, that I'm going to work on this week. You guys can implement that habit with me. I'll keep you accountable by getting on the lives, right? That's what the lives are for, is to create that accountability community. Um, and it's worked super well for me. And this whole thing, honestly, is essentially a selfish endeavor, right? In creating a space that like forces me to stay accountable to
Right.
changing, which I'm all for, right? There are going to be some days where I'm like, I hate myself. Why did I do this to myself? But that's the whole point, right? Is so that I can't quit. Um, and yeah, so I'll be having those lives, and then just kind of sharing with people my successes or setbacks in regards to implementing that habit on a day-to-day basis. And then other people from the live stream can do the same if they're like working on that habit with me, or if they've got like a different habit that's like kind of in line with the one that we're working on, they can share like, oh, I tried this and this worked. Maybe it'll work for this habit that you're trying to implement, or I tried this and it didn't work. Here's why I think it didn't, right? And so just kind of to create that community aspect that AI can't replicate, where people are getting together and sharing their learning experiences in the real world, and being able to just like the biggest thing is accountability. Like it's so hard to find people nowadays who will keep you accountable consistently. Um, and so I'm trying to, frankly, trying to build what I wish I had when I started all of this change stuff, which is an accountability community that's just like there, and that people will, like, there will be someone who's getting on and being like, did you do your crap? Did you do what you said you were going to do? Did you build that character of integrity today, or did you not? Right. And then also working together with you. Um, like, if you didn't, like, okay, why? What happened? What do you need to adjust? That's what step 7 is in the life optimization loop. Is like once you've got a habit and you're executing it, like you're gonna mess up. That's just life, right? It's gonna happen. And so when it does happen, adjust, 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 adjust as many times as needed. And I think that's where most people fall off the wagon, is they adjust 5, 10, 20 times, and they don't realize that it's actually going to take 36 times of adjusting for them to figure out what's actually going to work for them,
Right.
right? Because in all reality, like, you might think that you know who you are, and I might think that I know who I am and like why I am the way that I am. We don't know. We don't know squat. There's so much, like, neuroscience is such a budding, like, new field. There's so much of the about the brain and why the brain works the way that it does that we just have no freaking clue about. And so for anyone to sit here and be like, oh, like, I know exactly why I did this or why I am the way that I am, like, I'm sorry, I just don't buy that. But over constant experimentation, you can compound your understanding of yourself in order to be able to get you to do whatever the heck you want and whatever the heck you say you're going to do. That's why you have people like David Goggins now, who have spent years and years and years just training their mind and understanding how they specifically work. And that's the same reason why so many people watch his stuff, read his books, go to his trainings, but still aren't David Goggins, right? Is because it takes all of those years and you have to run all of those experiments for yourself individually, because you're different, because you're not like, you are not David Goggins. um, you have to be the version of David Goggins that's yourself,
Right.
right? And most people just aren't willing to put the effort in, or I shouldn't say most, but there are many people who find it very difficult to um, put that effort in consistently over time to discover what makes them tick and how, like, what kinds of habits they need to be implementing, and the way that they need to be implementing them in order for the compound change to actually compound, if that makes sense.
It does. So I do think it's cool that you document all that, because it's always nice to go back and also look at, hey, where was I
Hmm.
6 months ago,
Yeah,
and be able to compare. But
yeah, it's
we'll
gonna
be
be
sure
really
and
interesting.
yeah, I'll be sure and share all those links as well in the show notes. But as we are kind of getting to the end of the show, I did want to just thank you for living your life out loud and doing all this stuff, because it is awesome for people to have an example to follow, and
Hmm.
even someone to go first and say, hey, I'm going to go out and try all these cool things just to let you know what worked for me, and give them an
Yeah.
example just to see, like, hey, this guy did X, Y, and Z. Let me try and do the same. And I think it's awesome for people to be able to see that play out in real time and to follow along on their own journey,
Hmm.
which is inevitably going to look a little bit different than theirs. And I think that's the coolest part. So thank you for doing what you do.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate it. Right back
Yeah,
at you.
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, take care,
Thank you.
Jen.
You too. Before we go, can I ask a favor? Can I pray for you real quick? Thank you. Dear Heavenly Father, I want to thank you for this day. I want to thank you for our guest, Max. I want to thank you for the person listening to this podcast right now. I want to thank you for this opportunity that you've given to us to sit together and talk about what it means to be our best selves, to change, to continue to evolve, and to not stagnate in a place of no growth, but to continue to pursue our best self. And I appreciate the opportunity you give us each and every day to continue to show up and to do that. Lord, I ask you to continue to provide those opportunities to us, to help be a lamp to our feet, to show us the path where we need to continue to step, and to be able to take that one next step, even as simple as it may seem, that one next step which is going to continue to put us on a path to our calling, and the place that you've designated that we are gifted to go. Father, I ask all these things in your name. Amen. I love you.